Hello. Welcome to another in the endless stream of streams. Here with me, Hexpress Todd. How are you? I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. Doing something a little bit different. It's a bit of a riff on the OSR Reddit roundup, in which I go over a bunch of stuff in the OSR Reddit sphere, I guess. In this case, I've built up sort of a backlog of articles and such from the blogosphere, mostly about OSR adjacent topics. Kind of need an excuse to read them, talk about them, to get them off my plate, and hopefully either find some good stuff about them, or if not, just mark them as read. I thought I would go through some of these with you, see if it's something that people enjoy. Also, if you got good stuff, things that you think are worth reading for me or share with the community, shoot them over my way. Maybe we can make this another thing on an ongoing basis of some sort. Currently I'm using Pocket to store stuff. So let's just get over and look at my Pocket queue. I'm going to start at the top, actually, because there were some interesting things I ran into recently that I thought might be interesting. I get stuff from all over the place. People post interesting things to the OSR Reddit and other kind of Reddit groups every once in a while. I don't read a ton of the stuff on Facebook. I'll kind of rip through some of the Facebook groups to see what's going on and get some that way. I find Discord, some of the Discord's servers that I'm on, people post a bunch of stuff that I find interesting. And then as I find them, I usually, especially if I'm on mobile, if I'm on my phone or something, I'll pop them into Pocket so I can check them out later at my leisure. But then often that leisure time does not come. I mean, most often it's just down to laziness and other things intervening on my part. And then sometimes I just forget about it, and sometimes other stuff comes up. So I end up with a backlog. I'm going to start at the top, which is actually the most recent stuff. But for this first one, I ran into stuff most recently. Thought that was interesting, so I'll start there. Work backwards, and one other thing I think we could do with this, at least I might do, is, which is what happens. You click on one, and it's got a link to some other thing. Oh, I read this blog somewhere else, and then of course you start clicking down a whole rabbit hole of blogs. So we may find ourselves going down some of those rabbit holes. Otherwise, I'll just read what there is to read. Hey, Tunka Todd is in the chat. It's always great to hang with another member of Clan Todd. Absolutely. Clan Todd is hanging tough. Walking the path. Hey, walking the path. How are you? Thanks for coming. This first article is called 10 Questions for Your Sci-Fi Game, parenthetically, with answers for Artificial Sky. Posted on the Archon's Court blog. Let me see. I will grab this link. I'm looking at it in Pocket's kind of readability view, which is why you're not seeing a lot of the Blogspot site template, blog templating going on around it. But I will post the original blog in here. Just give me a second. Some questions for your SF game. And I have a feeling that even though this is targeted towards a sci-fi game, that we can probably, I assume, and I think part of why I find it useful is it'll probably be applicable if you're running other games as well. I think can I move myself up? Oops, didn't mean to do that. Let me swap. No, I didn't want to do that either. I want to actually just move myself. No, not going to let me do that. All right. Well, I wanted to do it. It's going to sound wonderful. Wanted to get it so that my face wasn't covered up by the link, but can't seem to do it. All right, never mind. Something I'll have to figure out later. Everyone's seen Jeff Rintz 20 questions for a campaign. I actually have not seen that, and maybe that's where we'll go next. I can't add it to Pocket from here. Okay. To be honest, I don't know if I need to link them in the first place. However, those questions were very, very focused on fantasy campaigns in particular, while I and many more recent RPG blog write people are more focused on sci-fi and cyberpunk stuff. And the post of only questions is pretty boring, so I decided to expand on Artificial Sky. I'm guessing that's their setting, using them. So I definitely will have to go back and see that. Maybe we'll hit that Jeff Rentz's version after this one. Here are the questions. 1, what do the PCs do? So maybe I'll go through. Do we want to hear? Are we interested in the answers for their particular setting? I think I'm more interested in the questions, actually. So the questions they have laid out are 1, what do the PCs do? 2, what is the setting scale? 3, what level of technology will the PCs generally have? 4, what's the highest level of technology? 5, are there any psychic abilities, superpowers, etc.? 6, how do I improve my character? 7, what's the most important faction in the area? 8, where can I get normal equipment? 9, where can I get strange or illegal equipment? And 10, how do I heal myself? So those are the 10 questions made kind of sci-fi-esque, which actually work fairly well on a fantasy thing. I always think it's interesting to think about technology in the fantasy world. Granted, we usually think of fantasy as being sort of some weird mix of, depending on what you're playing, if it's just straight up medieval, or it's even more ancient, or it's gunpowder, cyberpunk, whatever it is. But it tends to be kind of evenly spread, where you don't think of having some cultures way far behind. I know sometimes we'll run into, oh, this is the one culture that has airships, or oh, only the dwarves have black powder, something of that nature. But you tend to see it even in those areas fairly evenly spread amongst all the peoples, and then pretty much available to everybody. So people will kind of upgrade to the highest level. It'll be interesting to think about if you really did have vast differences and what those differences in technology look like on a fantasy level. And it's often something that we like to think about, but in my case anyway, I find the payoff for having those differences versus the amount of crunch you have to add on to get there. So, for instance, okay, we want iron versus bronze versus steel versus stone versus obsidian. Kind of maybe is a special case for stone. What do we get by putting those differences in there? How do we track it? How do we mechanize it? I tend to have found that the systems that I've seen doing that don't tend to have a great payoff from it. It doesn't really make a big difference, because I think if you're wearing, I don't know, leather armor, or maybe I should say, I think, and maybe I'm far off here because I'm not a weapons historian or a historian of weapons past or present. But something like a bronze blade, it's not so much that they won't kill you as easily as any other blade, but that they just will dull and bent and get destroyed fairly quickly going up against, say, steel. But I think in terms of maybe how I would work in the combat would not even be during the combat. It's like during the combat, it's going to be probably as effective at an abstracted level as anything else. But then that bronze sword, after it's fought that stuff that's higher hardness and whatever, is going to need serious resharpening and repairs, whereas the steel, it's good to go, more or less. But that's just my very basic look. So as I just mentioned, since we might go down some rabbit holes, let's go look at the original 20 questions. Take a look. This is why I like Pocket's layout, because look at this. Yuck. Oh, Blogspot. And people have asked, hey, should I start my new OSR blog on Blogspot? And I know that Blogspot is beloved by the OSR sphere, but man, it is like a dead platform walking. I don't think they've updated or done anything to do anything with Blogspot for whatever. And Google is just apt to just sunset your thing without any kind of notice or anything. And, then where are you? So this one's called 20 Quick Questions for Your Campaign Setting. This one, obviously, with a fantasy bent. And these are easy because we can just rattle these off. This is by Jeff Rentz. From 2011, so over 10 years ago. You can run D&D with just some PCs in a dungeon. I think that's totally legit. But if you have a campaign setting, here are some things for you to think about. Better to muse on these before your players ask you rather than finding yourself on the spot. And here's these things that he thought were important. Hey, None Nothing's in the chat. Welcome, None Nothing. So here are the questions, presumably for a fantasy campaign setting. 1, what is the deal with my cleric's religion? 2, where can we go to buy standard equipment? 3, where can we go to get plate mail custom fitted for this monster I just befriended? 4, who is the mightiest wizard in the land? 5, who is the greatest warrior in the land? 6, who is the richest person in the land? 7, where can we go to get some magical healing? 8, where can we go to get cures for the following conditions? Poison, disease, cure, curse, level drain, lycanthropy, polymorph, alignment change, death, and undeath. The cure for death. The cure for death. I kind of like the cure for undeath. Isn't that just you're a cleric and just hope they get the destroy in their turn undead table? Terrence, how dare you make fun of my blogspot? Sorry, Terrence. I apologize in advance. In the path, answer reform says he dares because he can. Yes, I can. Hey, blogspot, look, it had its moment. It had its run. That run was way long ago, and if they're not going to do anything with it, I know it's free, and so it's easy to think, oh, it's free, I'll use it, but you're not helping yourself. Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah, the cure for death and undeath. Okay, so number 9. Is there a magic guild my magic user belongs to or that I can join in order to get more spells? Where can I find an alchemist, sage, or other expert NPC? Where can I hire mercenaries? Is there any place on the map where swords are illegal, magic is outlawed, or any other notable hassles from Johnny Law? Which way to the nearest tavern? What monsters are terrorizing the countryside sufficiently that if I kill them, I will become famous? Are there any wars brewing I could go fight? How about gladiatorial arenas complete with hard-won glory and fabulous cash prizes? Are there any secret societies with sinister agendas I could join and or fight? What is there to eat around here? Any legendary lost treasures I could be looking for? Where is the nearest dragon or other monster with type H treasure? So a lot of these I like. I think the ones... Well, okay, so let me say about these 20 questions, which it's interesting because they were slightly different than the other ones. But you could see how they were trying to take the flavor of this, but make it a little bit less genre specific or at least point towards science fiction genres. The questions over who is the mightiest, greatest, and richest are awesome because they give you a lot of things at once, right? So you say, who is the mightiest wizard in the land? It gives you, or who is the greatest warrior and who is the richest person. Not only is it you get to build out some lore. Well, who is the greatest wizard in this area? Who are they? What do they do? What have they done? What are they doing? What are they doing now? Maybe it's somebody that the PCs would want to meet. Maybe it's someone who ends up being an antagonist towards the PCs. It becomes something that the PCs can strive for. And it also pushes you to think about how much magic is in my world. If I'm in a low magic setting, how high level is the mightiest wizard in the land? And then if the magic user in my party starts approaching that level or getting higher than that, maybe they become the mightiest wizard in the land. And that's something that, because you've thought about it, you could keep that in mind as your magic user is advancing, maybe in terms of just how they are perceived in the world, how they perceive themselves, how these other parties might perceive them, and what kind of things happen because they are approaching the mightiest wizard in the land. I would say it'd probably be great to ask that about every kind of class you have in the game, even if they're not all public knowledge, even if your players you're not going to hand out a pamphlet saying, he was the mightiest warrior in the realm. It is Conan, right? Maybe they know that, maybe they don't, but you knowing it and thinking about who they are, what they've done, what they're doing now, what level they are, kind of all those things, I think are really helpful. Hey, Don says, good day. Well, good day to you, Don. Thanks for joining the chat. So that, I think, are very good. I think the idea of where you can buy different resources, where you can get things, it is good to know, even if you're not going to necessarily give your players all the answers to these, but even just generally, hey, where can you get conditions cured? Is also kind of code for, or a way of a reframe way of asking basically which people can do these things. Is it clerics? Is it churches? Then even if the players don't know specifically which person, they might know, okay, we need to go to the church, or we need to go to this religious person, or is it the druids? Right? Is it a druid thing? Is this, when you think about what tales might be known of who can do this stuff in your world, is that a druid thing? Then they might not know, well, who can drain lycanthropy. They won't know individually, but they might know we need to find a druid. That is druid stuff. So those are also good things that you can give to your players in more of a general sense, but then also informing your world building. I think where to find information and experts and those things like that is good. Where to hire mercenaries is also good. The one that's interesting about, is there a place on the map where magic is outlawed or swords are illegal, or kind of, I guess, maybe more strenuous law and order? It's kind of an interesting question to ask, but also a good one. I kind of wonder the purpose of that one. Is it just so that there's no surprise? Or I don't mean surprise in the good way. I mean surprise in the bad way. Just to help people deal with the fact that, yes, there is this place that's going to be extremely strict, and you're not going to get gotcha'd with it. You're gonna know it's famous for that. And I think that unless that's the way the whole world works, such places would be famous. There would be some concept of, oh my gosh, this is a special place that doesn't allow you to carry around your sword. You're like, how can I do that? Or you might say all capitals are like that. Capitals over a certain size, maybe not your little, I don't know, Viscount capital, but once you get to baronies or dukedoms or something like that, then this rule is going to be effect. So about that. So then when you need to go to the capital of the duchy, you are aware. Tonka Todd in the chat says, is there a blog that offers questions for specifically low magic Conan type settings? I would be curious how those questions would differ from generic fantasy setting. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe we could, some point we could make them up themselves. I could see taking something like this as a basis. I'm not sure if there are any questions I ran into that I wouldn't think would be good asking. Certainly, I think you could apply a lot of these to a Conan type setting with little trouble. Certainly in a Conan type setting, the mightiest wizard would probably be known in some way, or be good to know, the Thulsa Dooms or whatever of the setting. I don't know if I know Thulsa Doom, I think, was technically not Conan, right? In the books, that was an opponent for, was it Kull the Conqueror? I think wasn't what Thulsa Doom was his kind of antagonist as Conan, and for the movie they put him in Conan's time. But either way, something like that would work. Who's the greatest warrior would work. Also, who's the richest person? You could also probably take these or very similar ones and apply them to cultures, right? So if you're in a Conan type game, you might say, well, who are the mightiest wizards in the world? And you would say, oh, those are the Stygian, all those towers of sleeping sorcerers in Stygia, right? That's where you go. Where do you find the mightiest warriors? Maybe that's Samaria. They are renowned for warriors. Don says Kull. Yep, that's what I thought. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to think, Tonka, what kind of questions do you think might be interesting, or that would be applicable just to swords and sorcery? I think maybe the answers for some of them might just be like, nope. Like, where can we go get magical healing? Nowhere, because you don't tend to find that. I mean, the heroes don't tend to get permanently disfigured by magic. It's kind of everyone. It happens to everybody else, and it's the heroes who, by hook or by crook, make it through. Though I could definitely see, if there isn't already a Conan story for, he's been afflicted with some slow-moving poison, and he's trying to find some witch woman or wild man or something in the woods or something to go cure them. Don says, a great set of questions can easily be made to fit any campaign. A good thing to help flesh out a setting. Absolutely. I think the thing that's good about questions like these is that it forces you to think about them. If you make a checklist of this, and the other thing I can see is this doesn't have to be for your entire world. As soon as I read In the Land, I thought, well, this could just be for an area. So you could have a global version of here's the mightiest warrior in the entire planet, essentially. But then you could also have this for in this little region, just to use Tolkien, in the Shire. Who was the mightiest wizard in the Shire? Maybe they don't have one. Maybe they would say Gandalf when he's around visiting, or maybe if they still think that Bilbo is something weird, they might say Bilbo Baggins is the mightiest wizard in the Shire. Who's the greatest warrior in the Shire? I don't know. And then you could have Gondor could have their own, and Eriador could have their own, and the Grey Havens could have their own. And then there could also be one for Middle Earth, overall. So you could scale these up or down, which is especially helpful for your kind of sandbox campaign. If you're in one area of your world, just write these up for that area. Maybe in, let's say, my Shire area, the highest level of all this greatest, richest, whatever, isn't all that rich, right? The richest guy in the Shire, it's rich by Shire standards, but as they said about the Mithril coat, that it was worth more than all the entire Shire combined, and it was just in Bilbo's chest. Didn't even, that's just the Shire wealth is just not that high. And then the greatest warrior in the Shire might only be level 3. That might just be the way they roll. You go to Gondor, maybe it's somebody, a Boromir or Faramir, maybe they're level 4 or 6, something like that. Pippin and the gang, when they come back, are probably the highest level fighters, greatest warriors in the Shire. So you can have local ones, you could have regional ones, you can have global ones. So you can really use these on multiple levels. All right, I dig that a lot. Let's backtrack out. I think we're done from this. Yes, back to my list. Now, somebody went and added some more questions, which is kind of how I got to the original one. So I'm going to skip the preamble. So we had the original 10 questions developed first from that set of 10, and then tweaked for sci-fi. Now here someone has decided to come up with a set of additional 20 questions. Tugga Todd says, what lands are the basis for legendary weapons? Might be a decent question, though I believe you're right in that these questions could easily be used to fit specific fantasy settings. Yeah, I think some question, I think that was already kind of asked in there, is where could you get special equipment, which might be legendary stuff. Though I think so the one thing I would say, and someone who might have better knowledge of all this sword and sorcery stuff, is that usually the legendary stuff is kind of all over the place, right? These are the things that they'll just stumble into, or they'll find, or they're not located in one spot. Where can you find legendary stuff? It's basically where are the most dangerous, weird, haunted locations, pretty much anywhere. They're going to be everywhere. You go to Samaria, there's going to be tombs or barrows or something, I'm sure, where you could dig in it and find them. I mean, what I think of in the original Conan movie, they're running across the steps and they find or Conan finds the artificial hill, falls inside and finds some armor. It could be in Aquilonia, in some tower that some rich person had salted away some weird stuff that you're trying to steal. It could be in Stygia in a tower. It could be in something that was buried and long forgotten, though. In some earlier age of the earth was there and came out. So I think it's maybe we could have a question just in general about where are locations of fantastic loot. Well, there might not be. I wouldn't know that there'd be a single legendary basis for it in the land. I mean, something like Tolkien, there is. You'd think of it more like the dwarves and the elves in the first and second age were masters of that stuff. So you're looking for stuff associated with that, or maybe Numenorian technology if it was still out there. But a lot of it, I think, in terms of sword sorcery, it's kind of everywhere. You just gotta find it, But it's not a bad question to ask in this area. Where are these kind of legendary locations? Maybe is a better word. Now, nothing says agreed. I think about who's the toughest guy in the village might be a very mediocre veteran, just a big dude, or maybe a psychopath that is just the only person physiologically capable of killing. Absolutely. But the cool thing is with the questions, you can use that. If you need a village, maybe you're prepping for your next session, and I need a village, but I don't really know what to think about it, or I haven't got something already in mind. Asking those questions might unlock a lot of stuff for you, because then you start thinking, well, who is the toughest guy in the village? Who are they, and what do they do? Is there a magical person in the village? Where do villagers go if they get poisoned? Where do villagers go if they get petrified? Do they go anywhere? Do they just pray? Is there somebody out there in the next hex in the woods or in the swamps or something? Do they go to a witch to help them? Do they go to some sorcerer? We don't know, but they're all great to ask, and you might not think to ask them if you don't have the questions. I forgot to share the link, so I will share the link. This is 20 more questions. Oops. Banging my mic. Okay, there we go. So the additional questions. Oh, this is. Let me know. This is by Dan from Throne of Salt at Blogspot. His additional questions: what miracles, clear deviations from what is possible in reality, exist in the setting? How do people get from A to B? What is it like in terms of speed, scope, and accessibility? Where do people live in general? What is the average quality of life like? What are the points of conflict in the society? What are some commonplace technologies players will interact with? What's something that technology has messed up? What's something that technology has fixed? What are the most valuable goods and resources? What are the most valued personal beliefs? What goods, behaviors, beliefs are banned? Who enforces the structures of power? Can PCs own a ship normally, or will they have to steal one? A ship, obviously, this is very sci-fi, but you could convert that to some other form of transport. Does alien life exist? What's its scope? Microbial, rare, common, exotic, sapient? Can AI be made or become conscious? Is it possible to digitize and upload a mind? Who counts as a person? Who is this future for? Who survived? Who benefits? Who's been excluded? Who suffers? Who is exploited? What's the overall tone like? So putting aside some of the more sci-fi ones, so you could probably turn the alien life into some kind of maybe yeah, I will highlight that. Thank you. I don't know, non-humanoid life or some kind of fantastic life. Are other things besides the kind of ye old humanoids races? Are they around in there? I like these a lot. These are almost more really cultural. So this person, Dan, I guess from, was it Throne of Salt, really zoomed in on cultural questions, which is great when you're looking at societies. Essentially, where do people live in general is this an agrarian culture, an urban culture, something else? How do people get around? Especially if you're not running. You think, okay, well, they're using horses and foot power, but maybe you're running in a game in which you have a setting that has airships or dragon flyers or teleportation circles. So it's an important question to ask. Get you thinking about that. The miracles question is interesting. Is there something that's an outlier to whatever reality you have? Does one exist? I'm trying to think of examples that would be. I mean, I think in terms of sci-fi, you might think of Q is clearly a very far outlier from most of the reality of Star Trek. I mean, maybe not so much when you get into some of the wilder things, but you take kind of the baseline of the Federation, you throw Q in the mix, and where they can just alter reality and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Think, whoa, that's really out there. I mean, it's nice to have that in your mind kind of ahead of time. I like the stuff about, where do people live? How do they live? What are the conflicts in the society? These are actually kind of close to the questions in the Worlds Without Number, things that they kind of go through and give you tables to kind of roll on. Even in a fantasy campaign, thinking about technology, or we could just substitute technology with magic. Is there something that they were able to fix with magic? Maybe they were able to do something with magic. Say there's a magic well in the village that prevents people from getting permanently, dying from poison or getting diseased. Someone gets sick, they just go drink from the well, bum, they're cured. But we can also think about what's gone wrong. Was it messed up? Is it related to that thing? Does that same well have some kind of side effect that they just live with, but maybe someone else, aka the party coming in, can't live with or refuse to live with? Maybe it affects people somewhere else. Maybe some person gets well from drinking from the well, gets cured from drinking from the well, but maybe what really is happening is someone else, some kind of psychic transference of the disease happens, so that, yeah, you drink from the well, you get cured, but some other poor sap in another village gets sick, and the party realizes that and has to fix it, right? It seems like actually a pretty neat idea. Didn't think about it from until now, and the only reason I thought about it now was because of this question. So good stuff. Thinking about valuable goods and resources. If you're interested in having economics be a part of your game, also good things to know about. Personal beliefs, excellent. Bad beliefs and behaviors, right? What is honored? What is taboo? Who enforces power? Like, where's the power structure? Who owns it? Yep, really good stuff. Super excellent. So far, I am really happy with what I chose to save from the internets. So that was 10 plus 20 settings questions for sci-fi games, again from Throne of Salt blog. Let's go back to the list. All right, this one, I'm not sure if I'll read all of them because it's 50, but I really was intrigued by this idea of 21 word dungeon rooms. I'm not sure if this is a thing or what. Well, let's take a look. This was posted by Thomas Kisbali from the Eldritch Fields blog on Blogspot. Like I said, OSR loves their Blogspot. All right, I'm just going to write this in the chat. Has anyone heard of this 21 room dungeons? Or 21 word dungeon rooms? Okay. Oh, so he's just got them numbered. All right, I was hoping there'd be maybe some explanation of it, but I guess not. Let's just read through some of these and kind of see what we can glean. This one's called the Mush Room. Cavemen lurk behind a row of giant mushrooms that split the room in two areas. Enemies shake fungi to release hallucinogenic spores. That's pretty cool. Definitely, I like the thematicness of the mushrooms and the cavemen and the hallucinogenic spores. Maybe they've just been into it so long that they're either they can handle the hallucinogens or they're kind of inured to them at this point, so it doesn't really matter to them. Arena of the Phoenix Spider. Great oval hall, knee-deep layer of ashes. Gold banners from 100-foot tall ceiling. Arachnid monstrosity rises, challenge all two-eyed creatures. So that mean he ignored me? You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you? Yeah, that's pretty cool. So the first one was definitely written kind of to be narratively, or I guess I should say, using proper grammar to be over senses. This one to get everything in there. Interesting that they chose in the amount of word, because you're working with a very limited amount of words here. So what you choose to include ends up being very important. And I like the gold banners hanging from the ceiling. Tunka Todd says about the mushroom, maybe only their shamans are allowed in the mushroom to commune with nature, gods, so forth. Yep, that could be definitely something. I mean, that room's got a lot of stuff going on. I like the Arena of the Phoenix Spider, too. So far, these are sort of encounters as much as rooms, but I'm digging them. Oozy Oozeborn's bedroom. Small and cluttered, rare alchemic manuals and implements everywhere. Domesticated ooze lives under bed, obeys simple verbal orders. Fetch, engulf, sit. That could be a fun one. Oozy Oozeborn. That could be a fun encounter if the players have gotten some maybe inkling, or if this is kind of the layer of something that shows up in other places where it somehow is obeying the orders of some NPC. Maybe it runs away at one point and then you could find it. I'm not sure what to mean. Is this supposed to mean that this is its bedroom and it's reading rare alchemical manuals, or is this its master's bedroom? I'm going to guess it's the master's bedroom who, through reading all these manuals and implements, was able to make the ooze or to change the ooze in this way. And then the ooze just, like a pet, just sort of stays with its master and then just, sits under the bed. Doesn't say what kind of ooze it is either. Tidal chamber. Long, narrow room. Floods/empties every 6 hours. Blueprints of experimental submersible vessel engraved into granite walls. Sluice leads to underground sea. Ooh, so it's, think of a submarine station. Tunkatan says, how do you find these blogs? I've been looking for interesting blogs, but I have had zero luck. Is there a search engine or question mark? How do I find them? They find me often. No, I mean, I wish it was so important and popular and well known that people would just shoot me all their blogs. But then again, actually, now I'm thinking about that. Maybe I don't want that kind of fame because, I know these I kind of get to cherry pick, whereas that would become too much to deal with. But I found Discord. People put a lot of stuff. The OSR, I think these kind of came from the OSR Discord. OSR Discord gives me some. OSR the subreddit, OSR subreddit. Like the stuff I find on the Friday roundups. I'll pick stuff out from there. Less so on Facebook. Some stuff just in search engines as I'm looking for something, but usually it's a lot of I find an article that references another article, which references another article, and then I'll be to save it for later, and fill it up. Walking the Path says, I'm liking the idea of 21-word rooms. Yeah, absolutely. It is. It definitely keeps you to concise descriptions. Bob Mosel says, many blogs have a blog roll of blogs they read. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure if I was on this blog, but not looking at the pared down pocket view, readable view, but looking at the regular Blogspot view, if you notice earlier on, there was a large column on the side where it had that kind of a blog roll. So yeah, you can, if you find blogs you like, check their blog rolls and you'll probably find other blogs you like, and you can keep doing that basically ad infinitum until you can stand no more. And you can also, I've been kind of out of using feed readers for a little bit, but grab their RSS feeds, put them in a feed reader of your choice. Google had an awesome feed reader, and of course, then they killed it quite a while ago now. There are other ones. And then you can see streams and streams of content flooding into your inbox or your app of choice. All right, I'll just do a couple more of these because I don't need to do 50. Let's see. Records of the War of the Worlds. Monochrome frescoes depict arrival of spaceships. Recipe of alien killing poison under the plaster. Red ink used is actually sample of it. Ooh, that's interesting. Oh, wait a minute. This one. The field where I died. Indoor field of wheat. Scarecrow in the middle. Eyes are 1,000 gold piece gems. If taken, dozens of angry crows burst out of its chest. I don't know if that's something they had in the game where their character died when they popped out the 1,000 gold piece gems. I don't know, but that's pretty good. All right, let's see. I'm going to scroll down. Let's see number 51. That'll be the last one. Then we can move on. But this is cool. Oh, yeah. Are these not in numerical order? All right, the last one. Killer Dust. Dust vortex opens up on floor. Particles in air coalesce into elementals. Gold intermixed with regular dust. Cough and wheeze, adventurers. That's a cool encounter. So some of these are encounters. Some of them are more rooms or areas, but all very cool. Yeah, it'd definitely be an interesting thing if I was going to do like a big dungeon, especially for my own usage, having these very condensed, just giving kind of the what you need. Make sure you get the flavor in there. I think saying, hey, I'm not going to go over so many words. Just going to stick to what's important. Probably be a useful exercise. Now let's go to Magic is Items and They Are Eating Your Soul from the Cosmic Orrery blog. Again, as usual, on Blogspot. We'll post this into the chat and post the link in the feed. Eating your soul. And that UTM code in there, and I'm just a bit short. I want to remember to take it out. All right. The Cosmic Orrery blog. I don't know what says for use with 24XX. I don't know what 24XX is, so hopefully this won't be meaningless to us. On that note, let's see. Walking the Path says, I'm building a hex crawl campaign. I think I'm going to stick with a number like 21 words for each encounter / location. Yeah, not a bad thing, and definitely will help keep your sanity. I think we got you could see from that blog we looked at that you can certainly get some flavor and some things down in a short word count. Maybe I would up it a little bit. I'm not sure where the 21 part comes from. There's probably some challenge or something else. Maybe I'd say 30 or 40 or even 50, but I think picking a number and at least staying within that ballpark, unless you want to make it a specific challenge and stay underneath an exact word count, is definitely a good idea. Especially if you're someone who gets into writing too much. You can really help make sure you stay focused. All magic comes from strange items and artifacts collected by the sorcerers and adventurers who study them and practice with them, learning their secrets. Thus, all magic is formatted as such. Item, : power, : cost, : die. with item being the name and/or descriptor, power being what it grants and does, cost being self-explanatory, and die being the die used to represent how skilled the user has gotten, usually starting at a D4. And we have an example. All right. An example is the Flaming Skull of Gorbax. Kindle and control flames, body turns to ash, D4. I'm not sure what the die. I like the concept of the power and the cost. Though body turns to ash seems a little extreme. Whose body? I just need a little drink of water here. My voice is starting to go again. Swig of water for the working man. I don't know if maybe it's just a change in humidity, at least here in New York City, but definitely getting to my voice a bit more. When performing magic, small uses of a power after the first few times using the item will not require a roll. Example, lighting a candle with the flaming skull or swirling a campfire's embers about. What counts as small can, of course, be scaled with the player's skill and wizardry as the group sees fit. Or not, if you'd prefer. When exercising greater control, power, or such, roll a die as normal to how you would make rolls in 24XX, which I don't know what it is. 1 to 2 is failure, 3 to 4 is setback, 5 plus is success. And scale die size appropriate to skill with item. A setback will generally net you a successful spell, but with the cost, a failure is all cost, no effect. State potential consequences clearly and definitely. The whole of your left arm will become ash. You'll be unable to speak clearly for the rest of the day. Make sure everyone agrees it is a fair cost. Wizards under this system should become collectors of esoteric items, pillaging as many as possible. This system allows players to choose how dangerous they want magic to be. They can play it safe and cautious, or fling it about, taking costs as they come. Furthermore, it avoids the defined by items, I loot my friend's body, what am I now problem with the bonding skill die increase, while still allowing some looting. I mean, I really dig the concept. I'm not sure about how the D4 works. Because you have to have at least a D4. I don't know, like if you're, because the making rolls in 24XX, which I don't know what it is. It seems like it's a D6, and you get essentially there's a third of a chance of each thing, right? Bottom third, 1 to 2 is a failure, 33 point whatever percent is setback, and then the upper 33 and whatever percent is a success. If I was going to back that down to a D4, would that be 1 is failure, or how would that work? 1 to 2 is failure, 3 is setback, 4 is success? I'm not sure how that would work. But it's kind of cool. Oh, and then there's some optionals, but there's nothing there. Let me look at the original one in case I'm just missing it. Sometimes with those readable views, they omit something or another. Yep, and it did. Okay, so we have some optionals. Sacrifices. Keep sacrifices on hand or choosing them in the moment to siphon off spell costs. The more potent the sacrifice, the better it works. I do like that concept, and I've thought about that for my own stuff. We have an example. Siphon the cost of your fireball into a last copy of a rare book, which burns to cinders. Another example, siphon the cost of tongue spell onto a horse. It becomes directionless and confused. Hopefully not your horse. And then we were going to, how do you find other blogs? Here's that. If we look on the side of here, now that we're on the actual Blogspot view, you can see their blog roll, including Throne of Salt, which we just read not very long ago. And then other stuff. That was from the Cosmic Orrery. I definitely like the power and the cost. And it would be very cool to have magic items like that, even if you're not running whatever 24XX is. Is there a link to the 24? Did I miss that? Hold on. Where is it? Really? For that second. No, I'm not seeing any links to it. 2400 series. 2400, you say? Is there such a thing? No, I'm not seeing that either. I might have to look that up. Hey, Bob Monsell, if you see the link and I just happen to be missing it, throw it in the chat and I'll pick it up because I am kind of curious as to what it is. Though saw in the yeah, I'm not seeing it, but I am at this point half blind. Let us go back. Let us get back to the salad. How are we doing on time? Okay. Hey, look at that. Not from Blogspot this time. This one's called World Building / Game Trope. The Warrior, the Brain, and the Utility. Oh, Bob also says there's a drive-through link to the 2400 series. Okay. 24XX on itch. All right, I'll check it out. I will maybe even tomorrow. I'll take a look at that. I'll dig up that 24XX or 2400. So thanks for spotting that. I will grab it. This is posted by King Bim, Coppers and Boars, coppersandboars.com. Just grab the URL again. Paste it in here. There we go. World building / game trope, the warrior, the brain, and the utility by King Bim. I think there is a rough trope within multi-species world building to include species in 3 fairly broad categories: the warrior, the brain, and the utility. It's also a game building trope to have 3 categories of player character, which often fits this: warrior, brain, and utility triple. Often species and classes actually end up as some sort of hybrid cross between these 3 concepts. I think the origin of the trope is that world builders and game builders, new favorite word, are looking for ways to have their species differ from humans without being some sort of uber-human. Therefore, they need to find niches for their species relative to humans. And these 3 niches are the most obvious. Ancient and experienced elves are really cool to have in game, but 1, how do you play something so alien? And 2, how do you balance something so experienced? You can do it, but it is not easy. I've compiled a few examples below. Often, there are multiple entrants within a niche in Medley built worlds. Sometimes I've written the name of a character when we only really see one member of a species. It's a point in favor of the existence of this trope that it sometimes occurs for just groups of characters, not whole species. Okay, using Aragon is a bit of a cheat since it's a composite of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings anyway, but I think the point is being served. Hold on, did we miss something where they mentioned Aragon? Hold on, let me go to the original because I feel like something got lost. Oh, yep, so we missed. So the warrior. Yep, that did get cut out for some reason. Bad pocket, bad. The warrior, I've compiled a few examples below. Often there are multiple entrants within a niche. Oh, we got that. Okay, so what we missed in the pocket version was it had gotten rid of the table. Don't do that, pocket. Don't get rid of the tables. So examples of the warrior in Lord of the Rings, orcs / Uruk-hai, the brain, elves, the utility, hobbits, in Star Wars, the warrior, Chewbacca, the brain, C-3PO, the utility, R2-D2. Star Trek Next Gen, the warrior, Worf, the brain, Data, the utility, Deanna Troi. Mass Effect, the warrior, Turian / Krogan, the brain, Solarians, the utility, Asari. So we kind of get here's Farscape. Dargo is the warrior, Rigel is the brain, and Zahn is the utility. Is Rigel really the brain? Wouldn't that be? I feel like Crichton's kind of the brain, no? Where's Crichton on there? Or maybe specifically talking about the non-human elements? I'm raising my arms up to do my water because my mic stand is low. So I'm trying not to bang my mic. And then D&D 5th edition, orc / half-orc are the warrior, gnome, elves are the brain, half-elf / dwarves are utility. I think so. Okay, it seems like specifically they're trying to call out the non-humans. And then finally it's got Aragon, which I won't read because I don't really know Aragon. I already mentioned, said it's kind of a cheat. Warhammer 40k doesn't quite fit, but within each faction you'll find examples of the warrior, the brain, and the utility as evidenced by the 40k assassins. It's just a matter of game balance, really. Most factions need to be able to do a variety of things. And using and inverting this trope. It's a good trope. It provides distinction between in-world groups and between players. It's worth being aware of it and bearing in mind when world building or game building. I've used it 3 times, so that means it's real world now. So invert the trope. No or minimal inherent specialisms. Some games do this. For example, in Knave, what you can do is based on your inventory, not a race or class. Continuum, the time-traveling role-playing game, allows you to jump out to another time, take months learning a skill, then jump back and resume what you were doing. You're spending your age to skill up, and everyone can learn new languages and skills. Similarly, a game based on the Matrix would fit this because characters can download skill sets and just learn, for instance, Kung Fu, from a program. They are distinct due to their personality, destiny, fate, and will. Nothing says no one on Farscape is the brain. And Walking the Path agrees. But then Terrence says Rigel is the brain, archetypal, crafty schemer. He's definitely a schemer. I don't know if I would consider him crafty. Maybe at some points he was. I think as the series went on too, it became more and more sort of comic relief from being serious. So I wonder, I suppose maybe the assertion of the brain, I'm thinking of the quality of the brain when really it's just about what they do. So yes, perhaps in that way, they definitely are not someone who's brawn and they're not a tool user kind of thing, which I might think of utility. So yeah, I guess that would make them a brain type. But then Zahn, she wasn't really a tool user either. We think of thieves and specialists and MacGyver types. They're all doing utility stuff. So interesting that they put her in that spot as opposed to, I'm not even sure who they would put in that spot. Monoclass campaigns, a campaign where every wizard is every PC is a wizard or fighter or bard or what have you, would enable the party to solve certain problems really well while struggling with others. Even with the massive variations you get with the 5e subclasses, a group of wizards will struggle with healing while a group of barbarians will struggle with utility. Everyone is the warrior. Games can and do differentiate between lots of types of warriors quite easily. From the top of my head, there's the brute, the honorable fighter / fighter with a code, the ranged attacker, the sneaky warrior, etc. Everyone is the brain. When I used to run Star Trek Adventures, the players had different competencies, but everyone was a brain. They could all find solutions to problems or clues to mysteries with technobabble in a way relating to their character. I see. So in this case, that's brain, right? Finding solutions to problems or clues to mysteries. And that, if we're looking at that as the use of the intellect, I guess Rigel still qualifies because it's not like he could do much else but use his intellect. It's just that they seem to kind of have nerfed that in terms of practical usage. But yeah, I suppose he, in that way, does qualify as a brain. Everyone is the utility. Let's see. I've been working on and off a while on a game building a magic school RPG. When it's finished, if it's finished, everyone will be the utility delineated by knowing different spells. I've not played it, but I understand that Mage the Ascension fits this trope inversion. The opening to the All Guardsmen party is a classic inversion of this trope. If an orc, I don't know what that means, are going to kill you in 10 minutes, it doesn't matter that much. One player is a bit more of a warrior than another. Let me know of any others. I can add this to the list or the table further up. All right. I just want to go back to the utility or the utility. Did they say what they mean? He doesn't, because I thought of the utility maybe as being a tool user, but Zahn is definitely not a utility in that sense. And what they say for Star Trek, and neither is Deanna. Like, I mean, wouldn't that be what's his name? Geordie LaForge be the utility? So it's kind of interesting. What maybe it's just a word I'm running afoul of, because it's definitely that they have abilities to bring to bear. They're kind of the magic. Is that maybe what it is? I think maybe they're leaning towards. But no. But then the Lord of the Rings hobbits are definitely. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting their use of utility, because I kind of get it, but then I think of the classic, say D&D, how they fit that tropes, where the warrior's the warrior, brain is really the magic users because tend to favor intelligence, but not even really, right? It could be anybody, but maybe you think about the magic user having at least, as I stumble over myself, depending on which version you're using, spell casting is an intelligence skill. it kind of feels like maybe that would be them. But then you have clerics and thieves. I would have put thieves in utility and then put clerics kind of in a mix of all of them, a little bit warrior, a little bit brain, a little bit utility. But this seems to be leaning more like magic users are utilities. So interesting. Food for thought. Food for thought. I think I'm done with that one. Oh, I got 5 minutes. Back out of there. It says it's a 4-minute read, so that theoretically should be just what we need. This is called the Dawnlit Heights Soulsborne Regional World Building from Back to Blogspot, the Sheep and Sorcery blog. I don't know why I keep copying the URL first. I should copy the title first. I'll put the link into the chat. Let's see. Paste. Go to the UTM source code and hit return. There we go. All right, Pocket, don't let me down with your formatting here. Again, this is the Dawnlit Heights Soulsborne Regional World Building posted at the Sheep and Sorcery blog. In an attempt to do some world building with a different focus for a new project, I wanted to focus not on a world, but only on a distinct region. I've been seriously inspired by Elden Ring. I've seen videos of Elden Ring. It looks really cool. It's basically Dark Souls open world. The map looks really nice. I like the way their map works, and I've been trying to actually get a high-res version of their map, but they only had the game open, I think, for some kind of closed network test beta, and people have taken screenshots of the map, but not at the high-res that I really want to see it in. Hopefully at some point we'll be able to find a full map, because it looks pretty cool. Just I like the stylistically it looks cool. I've been seriously inspired by Elden Ring and the Soulsborne franchise as a whole, to the point where some of my concepts seem to have been more inspired than I even realized. Regardless, we will push on. There are a few questions that I think are good to ask for Soulsborne world building. And I'm guessing Soulsborne, we're talking like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne. Is that the other one? If you've played those, I forget the name of the company that makes the developer that makes these, but there's a whole series of them. They're basically very dark. I think they're mostly fantasy, easy to get killed. You're kind of running around killing stuff. Things are very brutal. You die a lot, respawn, try again, that kind of thing. Excuse me. Okay, so his questions are, and this kind of relates back to those 10 and 20 questions that we read at the beginning of this whole stream. First, what deep sin has been committed? What is the result on the world? What ancient secret underlies all of this? Now, I have to say, quick swig of water for the working man. I have to say that I like these questions. I think and when I was thinking about those other questions in terms of how could they be applied to a region, these are really good. If you're looking at, here are troubled places my adventurers are going to go to do theoretically heroic things, you could think about in terms of this area, what's happened to it. Looking at it as a sin could be one way, just looking at it as I kind of like the idea of looking at it as a sin, simply because I like to think of problems coming from what people have done, that they don't just spring out of nowhere, but the fact that, say, undead are haunting a town. And I actually been meaning to do a video on this if I can once I can finally get my thoughts together. But basically, it's this concept of having a human, or I say human, it could be humanoid, but basically that areas aren't just victimized by external forces, that something internal resonates outward and draws external forces to it. So you see undead in a place. Why? Maybe somebody has done something, which I think is kind of how at least some of the original concepts of vampires, things like that, were about that kind of things have happened that have caused these things to come in. And that way you kind of can think of it as a sin. What crime has been committed here that has caused whatever it is that's happening? Oh, and Lincoln, hey, Lincoln snuck in here. It is From Software, and I am correct on the games. Excellent. From Software. So I like the idea of the sin. And then whatever happened here, and this happens actually already in the game. If you think about, there's an old battlefield, and so then you have haunted spirits. That's really answering those questions. What sin's been committed here? A whole bunch of people were murdered on the field of battle. Was result on the world? Now you have a haunted battlefield. Now, the third question just adds another layer to that. What ancient secret underlies all this? So we have the battlefield, great. Undead there, great, we get that. But then what's underneath it? Was this a situation where there was a traitor in the midst, and so these people died there because they were betrayed? Ooh, that's interesting. Maybe, and then that becomes something. Maybe is it not only just this location? Oh, there's undead there, but can it be undone? And what other ramifications of that betrayal are there on the place? So he's going to answer or ask, or they are going to ask these questions of their location, which I guess we'll just read for, I don't know anything about the Dawnlit Heights, but let's just read their answers to see kind of how they're going with or just what their thought processes are. So asking the question, what deep sin has been committed? The answer is the Dawnlit Heights are rich with gold. It made the kings of the Gelthior dynasty rich for generations. King Grimlock Gelthior, the grandfather of the current king of the country of Afars, was greedy beyond what most men could dream of. He hoarded great piles of gold, and yet he coveted all the more. He was possessive and self-absorbed above all things. He decided he must even obtain the church. Gold has long been considered a heavenly metal, blessed by the light of the sun, even in the deep dark of the earth. But King Grimlock uplifted the cult of gold, a religious group intent on discovering the heavenly powers of gold, and for his patronage, the cult was convinced to preach a kind of prosperity gospel, claiming the king to be a saint of gold, blessed by the sun, more blessed than all others for the wealth he claims. This was egregious to Elim of Borin's Rock, whom he pinned with a spear to a great tree in the heart of Shade Wood. Saint Elim was absorbed into the tree, even as it would seem to wither and die. That day a curse fell on the land, and the king of gold began to deepen in his madness. Chasing his wealth and his power, suitors came for his 7 daughters. King Grimlock hated the idea that his precious daughters might be taken from him, yet they wanted to pull away from him to marry these charming men. In the depths of his madness and possessiveness, he ate the suitors and daughters both. This final act of supreme greed finally broke his humanity, and he transformed into a great iridescent dragon. Kind of shades of the dragon of Brandonsford, and also it gives me this berserk kind of anime manga berserk kind of vibe to it. People becoming demons. Unbeknownst to him, or even to her, the least of his concubines was with child, a son who she bore with her as she fled from the destruction as the king's violent transformation tore down the castle and made the land around into a blasted wasteland. Very cool story, and I do like this idea of, Tolkien called it, was it dragon sickness, this lust for gold? But that being, if you wanted to ask in your world, how are dragons made? Maybe this is it. Maybe you don't have, you might have super ancient dragons, but the first dragons weren't dragons themselves. They were people driven to extreme greed and madness from chasing gold, and that's how you get more dragons. And then maybe dragons could also make more dragons, but that's another way to get them. What is the result on the world? Far has fallen much, its great wealth mostly hoarded away in King Drake Valley. Its people, terrified by the dragon, the Dawnlit Heights began to empty. Many people left the heights altogether, even with some still to be drawn up from the earth. King Barain Gelthior, the current king, has decided that the only way to return to glory is to actually follow in the footsteps of his ancestor, to become an even greater dragon, to maintain his mind through the transformation, and to begin the greatest golden age Alfar has ever seen. Meadowshire and Pitttown have been practically enslaved to his perpetual pursuit of gold. Bourne's Rock remains free as it is an ancient freehold and sheltered by the Bulwark Mountains. But if King Gelthior's prospectors discover gold near them, the townsfolk wonder if anything will stop him from enslaving them as well. What ancient secret underlies all of this? Gold in this nation is special. Gold is not special nor magical in other parts of the world, yet here it has a strange power. The cult of gold began as a group interested in exploring this mystery. It is known that there was an ancient civilization that once ruled over the whole continent, a civilization of death worshippers, or perhaps people who would do anything to escape death. They found gold to be a perfect conductor of their magics, of the power of the realm beyond death. The cult of gold believes that, for their machinations, their souls were imprisoned or perhaps preserved in the gold beneath the earth. And then the conclusion, that was a pretty big overview, but I wanted to write down my thinking on this project. There are some gameplay things that will be helped with this. For one thing, it is an in-universe justification for gold for XP. If the PCs bring it to any of the Glimmer Shrines, the priests or shrine maidens will offer up the gold to the heavens and so bring down its power for the PCs. I also really want to do a setting where the PCs had a really good reason to be hostile to the government from the get-go. Oh, and then the Soup Witch, which I think I read. So I have been here before because I have read the Soup Witch. Very cool. The gold for XP is really interesting. I like the idea that you have to bring, you're thinking about where to take gold to get it turned into XP. Usually just, for me, it's just a safe place, which is usually town. Maybe you have to take it to the shrines, and the priests or shrine maidens offer up the gold, and then you bring forth from there. Very cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining me on this jaunt through my reading list. Hope you guys liked it. Let me know if you did like it and you think, hey, maybe not every week, but every couple of weeks, this would be a cool thing to do. I enjoyed it, so let me know if it's something you'd like to see again. Another way you can show me that you like this is giving a thumbs up if you don't mind. I appreciate it a lot. And if you're not subscribed and you like this stuff, subscribing helps me out. Doesn't do anything to you. Well, you'll get notified if I post stuff. That's basically about it. And also send me links. If you got links stuff that's interesting and you'd like to share, and I can use my platform to get it a little bit more sunshine on the internet and talk about it, that's awesome too. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, night, weekend, or whenever you're watching or listening to this. Walking the path. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hey, Chip. Nice to see you again. Game on, everybody. Talk to you later.